it terribly painful?
Oh, God. Hey everybody, Ryan's on vacation. Welcome to ScreenCrush. My name's Doug. I'm going to talk about House of Dragon today and all the Easter eggs. I'm kind of nervous. I don't really know if I can do this.
Hello, Doug. I'm Brian. May I once again offer assistance?
Oh, that'd be good. Thank you so much.
Valar Morghulis.
Valar Doharius.
All right, then. Welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Brian Silliman, temporarily filling in for Ryan Arey, and these are all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you may have missed from Episode 6 of House of the Dragon. It is 10 years after a most unhappy wedding. And we pick up with Rhaenyra Targaryen, now played by Emma Darcy, carrying out the same duties her mother carried out in the premiere. Unlike the tragedy of her mother, both Rhaenyra and the child survive the birth, and just as her father would want, the child is a boy.
A boy, princess.
It's not her first child, it's not even her first son. We see very quickly that Rhaenyra is still beholden to duty and station above all else. This was true of her taking a husband, and it's true of her now as a mother. She is barely able to hold her new son for 3 seconds before she is told that Queen Alicent wants to see him. When Rhaenyra is told this, we can see that the battle lines between her and Alicent have solidified in the last 10 years. Demanding to see the baby immediately after his birth is a power move from Alicent, and although Rhaenyra should just lie in bed and recover, she decides to play the game. She stands and prepares to go personally. They barely get the cord cut as Rhaenyra gets dressed, and she is clearly putting her power plays with Alicent above her own health when she completely forgets about the afterbirth, which is nothing more than an afterthought. Not sorry. Just like her mother ruined her own health trying to produce a male heir for Viserys, Rhaenyra is putting her own health second. It's probably not great for the baby either.
You gotta see the baby.
She is still married to Laenor, who has played the part that they agreed on for these last 10 years. He no doubt speaks for every man in Westeros when he says,
I'm glad I'm not a woman.
When Rhaenyra sees the large set of stairs in front of her, she is not only thinking that this walk to Alicent is going to be much harder than she thought. Her road to the Iron Throne is going to be just as long and tedious, and having to transcend this staircase immediately after the physical trauma of giving birth is a symbol of that. She will have to rise through the pain over and over again. Though the circumstances are completely different, we recalled another instance of Westeros putting another ruler through humiliation. Rhaenyra is choosing to do this, however, but if Alicent knew she was doing it, she would no doubt have this woman following her the entire time.
Shame! Shame! Shame!
Where is the shame? We'll get there. When she approaches Queen Alicent's chambers, we see that Sir Criston Cole now stands guard over the Queen. He is utterly cold to his former paramour and fully faithful to Alicent, who gave him a second lease on life. Alicent, still wearing green, or greenish, is now played by Olivia Cooke, and looks surprised that Rhaenyra played big and wore herself out in coming personally. The only one happy about anything right now is the older King Viserys, who not only has a son, he now has 3, count 'em up, 3 grandsons. He has continued to deteriorate. One of his hands is fully covered now, and very possibly has no idea that most of the court is just waiting for him to die. Rhaenyra is thankful for him, though, and their bond, at least, still remains intact. Her legacy and her children are protected as long as Viserys is alive. The fact that he is crumbling before her very eyes is probably an even more worrying sight than the staircase was. Rhaenyra's agency as a mother is tossed in the fire twice in rapid succession when Viserys tells the baby that he'll be a knight, and Alicent asks what the baby's name is.
He'll be called Joffrey.
Rhaenyra has no say in either matter. You'll remember that Joffrey is the name of Laenor's lover, who was killed in the previous episode. It's likely difficult for any Game of Thrones fan to hear that name and not think of this charming young fellow.
You can't insult me!
When Viserys points out the look of the baby, it is much more loaded than we originally think.
I do believe he has his father's nose.
He is making a physical connection to Laenor and the baby, letting everyone know that as far as he is concerned, Laenor is, without a question, this child's biological father. Why is this an issue? Alicent is making it one, and her line to Laenor in the end of this scene is just one example.
Sooner or later you may get one who looks like you.
Rhaenyra has 3 children thus far: Jacaerys Velaryon, Lucerys Velaryon, and the newly born Joffrey. She became heir to Viserys because he had no sons, yet Rhaenyra herself, so far, has had nothing but. True to the deal that Viserys made with Lord Corlys, they all bear the Velaryon name. That is, until one of them ascends the Iron Throne. What none of them have is the darker skin tone of Laenor or his silver-colored hair. All of Rhaenyra's children are
black of hair.
Alicent would love nothing more than to prove that all of Rhaenyra's children are bastards. It would delegitimize all of them, bring shame to Rhaenyra, and would all but certainly place her own son, Aegon II, first in the line of succession. Word of Laenor's appetites have no doubt reached her, and she knows that Rhaenyra has had at least one dalliance with Criston Cole. She has her sights set on another as well, as we'll soon see.
Busted.
When Laenor says that he was right to pick the name as he and Rhaenyra leave Alicent's chamber, she points out that she's the one who is bleeding. She's not being poetic. We see a long trail of blood coming from the door behind her. She once dreamed of being on the battlefield as a dragon rider, but her mother told her that their battlefield was the birthing bed. Rhaenyra cannot be contained, so her wounds will not be restricted to one simple bed. Her battleground as a mother will envelop the entire kingdom. When we see Rhaenyra's older sons with a dragon egg all picked out for Joffrey's crib, we also see that Sir Harwin Strong has risen through the ranks and is now Lord Commander of the City Watch. Not only did his quick actions in getting Rhaenyra out of the mob scene in the previous episode earn him and his house further trust, it may have earned him something else. Not only does Lord Commander Harwin look after Jace and Luce, he gives that look to Joffrey the newborn. Is it the look of a father? We don't know yet, but yes. From the look on his face, Laenor likely knows the truth. He and Rhaenyra had a deal, after all.
And a deal is a deal.
For real. When we enter the dragon pit, we see the process of how Targaryens and Velaryons bond with their dragons. Once this bond is sealed, the dragon will not take instruction from any other. The dragon that Jacaerys bonds with here is Vermax, the dragon that he will eventually master and ride. He can't wait to do the catchphrase.
Dracarys Vermax.
This entire scene gives us our best look yet at the full interior of the dragon pit, the ruins of which we see later on in Season 7 of Thrones. We also meet Alicent's grown boys, Aegon II and Aemond Targaryen. Aemond has no dragon, and a Targaryen without a dragon is someone to be mocked, apparently. The other 3 youngsters play a joke on him, with Aegon instigating the entire thing.
Behold, the pink dread.
The surreally unfunny joke prompts Aemond to descend into the darkness of the dragon pit and have a real dragon encounter, reminding us of how Tyrion will eventually do the same far across the sea. When we rejoin Alicent, she's with her daughter Helaena. Helaena is studying insects, which is a symbol that will return later on in the episode. It also makes us remember this.
Why are you smashing all those beetles?
The end of this little scene shows Alicent giving her daughter a look of kindness and pity, letting us know that Alicent is well aware of the horrors that her daughter will soon be subject to because she is a woman who exists. When Aemond is brought in after his time in the dragon pit, he complains that he doesn't have a dragon yet, and Alicent chastises him for being obsessed with them. She promises that he'll have one someday, but is this true? Will Aemond ever be friends with a dragon? We don't want to spoil you, so we'll just say...
Hey, what happened?
Viserys is still working on his model train set, model of old Valyria, and he doesn't buy that Rhaenyra's sons were behind this alone. Alicent tries to pour honey in his ears, but he's not as blind as some in the Red Keep think he is.
You sure it wasn't our Aegon who put them up to it?
Alicent counters with wondering how their dragons hatched in the first place, and things turn into a round of her trying to convince the king that Laenor is not the father of Rhaenyra's sons.
To have one child like that is a mistake. To have 3 is an insult.
Viserys tells a story about a horse, which culminates with...
Nature is a thing of mysterious works.
Alicent was just approaching this very subject with her daughter, but she's not into it here. She uses horses, the words of his own story, to ask the question, but he still isn't buying.
The consequences of an allegation like the one you toyed would be dire.
It's not that he doesn't see it or believe it. He simply knows what the consequences are and is still firmly on Rhaenyra's side. He's not Tywin Lannister, who never seemed to acknowledge that the incest rumors about his children could ever be real.
Everything they say
is true about Jamie and me.
No.
Your legacy is a lie.
When she's safely away from the king, we see Alicent get real for a moment, and she does this with one of the only people she can be fully honest with, Sir Criston Cole.
He'll do naught but make excuses for her.
He has nothing but resentment towards Rhaenyra, his former lover.
A spider who stings and sucks her prey dry.
And while he's playing the victim, may we remind him that it in fact takes two to tango?
But in the world, we must defend our own.
It was funny.
When his mother tells him that Rhaenyra's sons won't be his little friends forever, he doesn't seem to understand or care.
Rhaenyra will ascend the throne, and Jacaerys Targaryen will be her heir.
So?
She escalates her tone quickly.
You are the challenge! You are the challenge, Aegon! Simply by living and breathing!
She maintains the same thing that Otto once told her. If Rhaenyra takes the throne, she'll have Aegon and all of his siblings killed. Is this why Alicent is so anti-Rhaenyra, or is it for more selfish reasons?
Bitterbow!
Hey, Aegon II looks familiar.
Thank you for bringing that up. I should note that Aegon II is now played by Ty Tennant, son of David Tennant, who played the 10th Doctor on Doctor Who. Matt Smith, Daemon Targaryen, succeeded him as the 11th Doctor. They shared scenes together in the 50th anniversary special. Speaking of Daemon, it's time to check in with the Rogue Prince. When we see him again, he's married to Laenor Velaryon, and the two of them are riding their dragons for sport in Pentos. Pentos, you'll remember, is where Daenerys had her first scenes in Game of Thrones.
And his sister, Daenerys of House Targaryen.
They have two daughters, Baela and Rhaena. Another is on the way, so Daemon must have either worked out his issues or gotten an assist. Laena is a Velaryon, but her mother is Rhaenys Targaryen, the queen that never was. Because of this, she is able to be a dragon rider. We have already seen her brother Laenor ride the dragon Seasmoke. She doesn't ride just any dragon. We see her riding Vhagar, the dragon originally written by Queen Visenya alongside Aegon the Conqueror. This series previously mentioned that Vhagar was still alive, but that she was riderless and nowhere knew where she was. Vhagar was riderless during many periods in George R.R. Martin's writing, with her rider before Laena being Baelor the Bold, who was the father of King Viserys. They aren't riding for glory here. This is more of a circus act.
Hey, I used to be in a circus. I was a little dog.
I believe you. When we see them at dinner, their host makes reference to Aegon the Conqueror and the Century of Blood, which was a period in Martin's writing that found the 9 free cities of Essos at war after the doom of Valyria. Volantis fought to claim what was left, but just as their host says, Aegon the Conqueror flew Balerion to Lys and burned a Volantine fleet.
On the great dragon Balerion, he flew to our aid in Lys and burned a fleet of enemy ships, thus turning the tide.
The Pentoshi want Daemon to stay because, wouldn't you know it, the Triarchy is rising again, and this time they have the help of the Martells of Dorne. You'll remember this Martell from Game of Thrones.
When I pull my blade, your friend starts bleeding quite a lot, I'm afraid. So many veins in the wrist.
But this is well before that, and after countless Dornish incursions, the Targaryens have no love for House Martell. One of Aegon the Conqueror's 2 sister wives, Queen Rhaenys, died there, along with her dragon Meraxes. Dorne proved almost impossible to subdue, even for Aegon the Conqueror. This offer is appealing to a tired-looking Daemon, but it is not appealing at all to Laena.
Free to do as we please. Welcomed and feted.
And eternally guessed.
Precisely.
Having just been teaching one of his daughters the Valyrian language, Daemon being told that they possess the blood of old Valyria is something he obviously already knows. Where do they belong?
Valyria is gone, we don't belong anywhere.
When we see the sons of both Rhaenyra and Alicent training in the yard, we remember other such training scenes on Game of Thrones. Viserys thinks that this is going to bond them all.
This is the stuff, Laenor.
You'll certainly form a lifelong bond, wouldn't you agree?
Oh, I don't think it's gonna work.
It doesn't. The problem is that while Viserys drinks and thinks happy thoughts, the children are being taught by Criston Cole and Harwin Strong. Both are almost certainly lovers or former lovers of Rhaenyra, and both are now on opposite sides of the political divide. This entire scene in a way, is yet another harbinger of the wars to come. When Harwin Strong accuses Criston Cole of cruelty, we think of another Kingsguard member we've seen and how absurdly cruel they were. Even so, Criston Cole isn't about to let this go without charging up Rumor Watch 3000.
Your interest in the Princeling's training is quite unusual, Commander. Most men would only have that kind of devotion toward a cousin or a son.
Rhaenyra not only hears of this, she continues the grand trend of people listening into the conversations of others and hears Harwin arguing over his actions with his father.
Your intimacy with the Princess Rhaenyra is an offense that would mean exile and death.
Harwin doesn't admit that he is the father, but his father only tells him this.
People have eyes, boy.
Lionel doesn't think that the king sees it, though, and if he does, it is
willful blindness of a father towards his child.
Like Rhaenyra, only the frail king keeps them all alive.
You are the father!
When Rhaenyra returns to her room, perpetually paying the price for having barely a moment of enjoyment, we hear a familiar song being sung outside her room. It sounds very similar to this tune.
From here to there, all black and brown and covered with hair.
In which case, wow, that song has legs. If it's not the same, a bard somewhere got derivative. Derivative and lazy. Shame on you.
Shame! 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 Shame!
Laenor is hot about war once again starting in the Stepstones. He's obviously bored at court, so he wants to return to war with his new friend Carl.
Good honest battle to enliven my blood again.
When he mentions the Tyroshi general who dyes his beard purple, we're reminded of Dario Naharis in Martin's books, a Tyroshi captain who dyed his beard a number of colors, purple being one of them. The television show went another route. Laenor is definitely participating in willful blindness himself, because he has no idea that rumors about the parentage of his own sons are swirling wider than ever.
Questions about our son's parentage.
He all but assures us that they aren't just rumors.
Insinuations, are they?
10 years of his deal with Rhaenyra have taken a toll, but when he brings this up, she sets him straight.
You are owed nothing.
He has some Velaryon wisdom for her, which apparently has to involve the sea because of a book deal Lord Corlys once made.
The wise sailor flees the storm as it gathers.
That might not lead to the kind of power move that Rhaenyra is looking for, but that doesn't mean that it's unwise. When one of Laena and Daemon's twin daughters, Rhaena, holds a dragon egg to the fire, Laena has to remind her of something.
It's been 8 years, sweetling. Half of them never do, you know. What? Hatch.
It's worth trying anyway, as Magister Illyrio no doubt thought that the eggs he gave Daenerys would never hatch either. Like Aemond earlier in the episode, Rhaena is self-conscious because she is a Targaryen without a dragon. This may be why Daemon is teaching her sister Baela to speak Valyrian and not her. When Laena tells Daemon that her brother is written and that Rhaenyra has had another son, he shows us that he has heard the rumors as well, and he shows plenty of resentment about it.
Does your brother mention if this one also bears a marked but entirely coincidental resemblance to the commander of the City Watch?
Daemon also has more in common with his brother Viserys than we thought, as he has become obsessed with staying in and reading about old dragon riders and their history. If he starts building a model train set, a model of old Valyria, we'll know for sure that he's truly stuck in the past. When we join a small council meeting, we get references to House Tully, Riverrun, and Lord Grover Tully, who was head of that house and Lord of Riverrun during the reign of Viserys. Rhaenyra adds a reference to how the Brackens and the Blackwoods will use any excuse to spill each other's blood, two houses that have a bitter feud in Martin's writing. This series showed them going at it early in episode 4.
Yeah, but didn't you say there was a Baratheon in that fight?
Well, I didn't, but I'm not entirely blameless here, so yes. We mistakenly said in the video for episode 4 that a Baratheon was involved in the Storm's End brawl, but we got mixed up. It was a Bracken and a Blackwood. Classic rivalry.
But still, where did the lighter fluid come from?
Before Rhaenyra and Alicent could start going at one another across the table, the new Stepstones problem is brought up, and Viserys lets us know that he really has had it up to here with all of that.
Ever be shut of that blasted place?
Not anytime soon, he won't.
Not unless he dies. Dorne joining with the Triarchy doesn't sit well with him, though, as he also shows the lingering Targaryen dislike for Dorne and House Martell.
Trust a Martell is to be disappointed.
Rhaenyra points out that the problem has risen again because they left the Stepstones undefended after stepping in. This is what happened to most of Slaver's Bay after Daenerys conquered and then left, and what surely happened to Meereen as well, though we've yet to hear about it. When the council members try to make their voices heard, they can't get past the vitriol volley between Rhaenyra and Alicent. That said, Rhaenyra proves to be the bigger person and gives at least a little ground.
My son, Jacaerys, will inherit the Iron Throne after me. I propose we betroth him to your daughter, Helena.
Not only is she wanting to bury their enmity, she is having her own son put duty first, just as she was once forced to do. Jacaerys and Helena are related, but that's no problem for the Targaryens. It's a feature, not a bug. Viserys likes it because it'll let him sleep more.
Let them rule together.
A most judicious proposition.
She's even willing to give Aemond a dragon egg if her own dragon Syrax has another clutch, but once again, Rhaenyra is ignoring her physical body in order to play the game. When Viserys continues to support Rhaenyra, Alicent shows that she can shut the king down whenever she likes. She's the real power here and can put this frail king to bed without supper if she wants to. His existence protects Rhaenyra, but the real power lives with Alicent and continues to grow. This is not good for Team Rhaenyra.
May do as you wish, husband. When I am cold in my grave.
When Lionel Strong tries to resign as Hand of the King, he says it is because of his son's actions earlier in the Yard, actions that were necessary because of what Criston Cole was doing. When he adds in that the rumors about Harwin and Rhaenyra are playing a part in this as well, Alicent asks him to say them in plain language. He cannot, so Viserys does not accept his resignation. Alicent is let down, as if a certain plan of hers has failed. She does overhear Lionel saying that both he and Harwin will be returning to their seat at Harrenhal, the gargantuan burned-out husk of a castle that we saw in the very first scene of this show. It showed up many times in Season 2 of Game of Thrones especially, and in Martin's writing, it was burned and melted by Aegon the Conqueror and Velaryon. Ever since, it is said that the castle is cursed. That's one rumor that everyone takes very seriously.
A terrible curse.
When Alicent goes to dinner, she's not just having it with any old guest. In the 10 years that followed the last episode, the silver-tongued Larys Strong has become her firm ally and confidant. As he said in episode 5, people don't listen to him when he talks, so he observes. This is how he serves Alicent. The two of them are getting their scheme on, so it's not shocking that Alicent sends away a maid who could be a little bird. The theme of willful blindness comes up yet again when Larys talks about the king. Alicent wishes that her father would be Hand of the King once more. He would not be impartial, and he would not be just. But as she says,
no, but he would be partial to me.
When Larys goes to the dungeons to recruit some criminals, we can see the image of a beetle on his walking stick. This could be a symbol that he's like an insect, or it could be a callback to Alicent's daughter learning about insects earlier in the episode. These men, with beetle badges on their cloaks, set fire to Harrenhal on his orders. The castle burns down, once again, and both Lionel and Harwin perish. But the curse will be blamed. No one here really suspects Larys. For one thing, everyone underestimates him. For another, the 3 men he recruited to do it would never speak of it. They'll never speak of anything. He had their tongues ripped out.
They could write it.
But who'd believe them? In Martin's writing, the cause of the fire is never determined, though Larys, who will benefit the most from it, is suggested as a possible culprit. Daemon, Lord Corlys, and the king himself were other potential instigators. When Laena gives birth, we once again return to what Emma Arryn once referred to as the woman's battlefield. Unlike Rhaenyra's labor in the beginning of the episode, this labor goes quite badly. Just as with Emma, the baby can be saved, but Laena cannot. Daemon is told this, finding himself in the same position Viserys found himself in during the tournament. While Viserys was dealing with this, Daemon was peacocking around and getting applause.
Well, well, well. How the turntables...
Here, they aren't even sure if the baby can be saved, but Laena takes things into her own hands and walks out to see Vhagar, who appropriately looks like an older and wiser dragon than the others. She has decided to end things on her terms, like a true Targaryen Velaryon would.
Dracarys!
Vhagar has lost several riders at this point in her history, and she is reluctant to lose another. She does not want to obey this command, letting us know that the pain of losing a rider is very likely very, very harmful for dragons. Seeing the hurt in her master's eyes changes things, so Vhagar is merciful and gives Laena what she wants. Vhagar is once again riderless. She's not the only dragon who loses someone, as Rhaenyra has now lost a staunch defender in Harwin. His farewell to Rhaenyra's children hammers it home even more, even for the children themselves.
Is Harwin strong, my father? Am I a bastard?
When Rhaenyra says he's a Targaryen and that's all that matters, she's saying that he is above such petty concerns. Whether it's incest, bastardy, or worse, Targaryens consider themselves above it all. No doubt feeling vulnerable, Rhaenyra is making the smart choice and following advice given to her by Laenor, of all people. She and her faction will go to Dragonstone.
I have been undermined and made a spectacle. They whisper about me in the corridors. Well, I leave them to it.
When Larys monologues about children being a weakness, it makes us think of how children have made Rhaenyra, Alicent, and Daemon vulnerable. Harwin led to Lionel's death, and Larys caused it. Viserys also shows that he is not so willfully blind as some would believe. Not about Rhaenyra, and not about anyone else. He's the one who finally sees the mouse. Two were seen representing the differing duties of Rhaenyra and Alicent in episodes past, and one lapped up blood in the shadows at the end of last week's episode. They've gone unnoticed until now, but Viserys, of all people, is the one to notice the vermin skittering around, feeding off of his kingdom. Whether or not this moment will lead to any action from him is another matter entirely. Love stays the hand. Love is a downfall, Larys continues, making us think of this line from Maester Aemon.
Love is the death of duty.
This entire monologue from Larys also makes us think of Littlefinger and this moment.
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.
When Larys finishes the speech to Alicent, she looks horrified that it has all led to this.
You pass judgment.
The Queen makes a wish.
He must think he's some kind of Jack and Hagar.
The girl has named a second name. The man will do what must be done.
No!
Alicent may have won this round, but was it worth it? Bet it wasn't.
I feel certain you will reward me.
That's all the Easter eggs we found, but if you found any, let us know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Brian Silliman.